She walked out of the prison on a Friday morning with a bag containing everything she owned, a change of underwear, an old phone with no SIM card, and 50 euros given to her upon release. By Monday, she was already rocking someone else's child and singing him a lullaby. And on Wednesday, a homeless man at the gate looked at that child and dropped to his knees right there on the pavement. He recognized him. It was his son. A son he hadn't seen in 3 years. A son he had been told was dead. Nobody knew how it would end. Not her, not him, not the people who stood nearby and watched. But what began that Wednesday at the gate overturned the lives of everyone involved and destroyed some of them. Her name was Marina Diomina, 31 years old. Criminal conviction, fraud on a large scale. Sentence, 3 years, served to the last day without early release, because early release requires a solicitor, and she didn't have one. Before prison, she had been an accountant at a small construction firm, and when the scheme with falsified invoices came to light, the company director had arranged things so that Marina took the fall. She knew this. She couldn't prove it. For 3 years she thought about it. Every day, every night, especially in the early months when it still seemed as though something might be fixed. Then she stopped thinking and simply began to live, day by day, from wake up to lights out, from a bowl of porridge to the evening head count. That helped, not in the sense that things became good, in the sense that she didn't break. When she came out, there was nowhere to go. She had lost the flat before the verdict, while under investigation and in pre-trial detention. Her mother had died 2 years ago while Marina was inside. She found out from a letter from the neighbor. No father. Friends dissolved, the way people dissolve when someone they know gets a criminal case against them. Nobody. She spent 3 days in a shelter at a church. Cold, noisy, but a roof and food. On the 4th day, she went to the employment center. There they looked at her with that expression they reserve for people with criminal records. Not hostile, but with a readiness made wariness that means, we know how this ends. They offered her vacancies: cleaner at a market, dishwasher in a canteen, laborer in a warehouse. Marina wrote it all down, said thank you. On her way out, she noticed a flyer on the notice board, printed, slightly crooked, with the phone number tabs torn from the bottom. Nanny required for child with special needs. Accommodation provided. Experience with children desirable, but not essential. Most important, patience and reliability. Accommodation provided. That settled everything. She rang from someone else's phone. She asked the girl at the reception desk at the employment center. She took the number. A woman answered, her voice tired, businesslike, without excess emotion. About the nanny vacancy, said Marina. Do you have a criminal record? The woman asked, immediately, without preamble. Marina paused for a second. Yes. For what? Fraud. How long? 3 years. I came out on Friday. A brief pause. Come in, said the woman. Take down the address. That was unexpected. Marina wrote it down. The address took her to a part of the city known for old money. Not new builds, not post-war blocks, but solid brick buildings from an earlier era, the kind built for people of standing. The building stood set back from the street behind iron gates with an intercom, with a small courtyard and trees whose trunks, judging by their thickness, were older than most of the people living here. The woman who opened the door of the 3rd floor flat was around 50, solidly built, closely cropped hair, a face that had once been attractive and was now severe. Her name was Ella Hoffman. She showed Marina into the sitting room, offered her a seat, did not offer tea, straight to business. The boy is 6, she said. Diagnosis, cerebral palsy, mild form. He walks, he speaks, but with delays. The right hand functions less well than the left. Seizures occur, rarely, but they do. Do you know what to do in the event of a seizure? No, said Marina honestly. You'll learn. It's not complicated. The main thing is not to panic. Ella Hoffman was watching her assessingly. Why did you respond to the advertisement? Is it difficult to find work with a criminal record? Yes. Direct. Good. She paused. You're probably wondering why I'm not afraid to take someone convicted of fraud to work with a child. I am, said Marina. Because I need someone who has nowhere to run to, said Ella Hoffman simply. Those whose lives are going well leave after a month. They find something better. I need someone who will stay. The boy cannot have a new nanny every month. He needs stability. I see. Besides, Ella Hoffman continued, fraud and cruelty to children are different things. You are not a predator or a sadist. I made inquiries. Inquiries? Marina looked at her. I rang the prison. I spoke with the wing officer. She said you worked in the laundry for 3 years without a single disciplinary report. Twice helped women with children in the neighboring block, and that you have no tendency toward aggression. A pause. I am a thorough person. Marina said nothing. 3 years, and something of her had remained regardless, something small but real. The boy's name is Artem, said Ella Hoffman. Come and meet him. The boy's room was at the end of the corridor. Small, light, with drawings on the walls, not shop-bought posters but real ones, done by hand, bright. Artem sat on the floor with building blocks, constructing something intently, not looking up. 6 years old, dark hair, thin hands, the right slightly held against his body. When they came in, he raised his head. He looked at Marina carefully, for a long time, the way children look who are accustomed to assessing new people seriously, because new people turn out to be all sorts. This is Marina, said Ella Hoffman. She'll be with you. Hello, said Artem, his voice a little slow, words spoken with care. Can you build towers? I've never tried, said Marina. Sit down, said Artem. I'll show you. Ella Hoffman left. Marina sat on the floor beside the boy. Artem picked up a block, set it down, picked up another with his left hand, carefully, and placed it beside the first. Like that, he said. Your turn. Marina took a block, placed it. Good, said Artem seriously. You can do it. It was the first time in 3 years that someone had said good to her without a hidden meaning. She stayed. The first days were a period of adjustment, to Artem, to Ella Hoffman, and to the flat. The flat was large, 4 rooms. Ella Hoffman occupied 2 of them. Artem had his own, and Marina was given a small one, the last, with a window onto the courtyard. A bed, a table, a wardrobe. By the standards of the past 3 years, paradise. Ella Hoffman worked. She left in the morning, returned in the evening. What she did, she didn't say, and Marina didn't ask. Judging by her clothes and by the way she spoke on the phone in the corridor, something legal or financial with people accustomed to being listened to. Not a word was said about a husband, no photographs, no mentions. Marina didn't ask about that either. Artem turned out to be an uncomplicated child, in the sense that had nothing to do with his diagnosis. He was intelligent, observant, and very direct. He asked questions without circumlocution, the kind that adults usually skirt around. On the 3rd day, he asked, "Where were you before?" "Far away," said Marina. "Was it bad there?" She thought for a second. "It was different." "Bad or good?" "Boring," she said. "And cold," Artem thought. "It's warmer here," he said decisively. "I checked with a thermometer." "You checked?" "Yes, I have a thermometer. Not the kind for temperature, the kind for air. Grandmother gave it to me." "Is Ella Hoffman your grandmother?" Artem was quiet, then said, evenly, without particular emotion, simply as a fact. "No. She says she's almost a grandmother, but not quite." "And where is Mama?" asked Marina, and immediately regretted it. Not because the question was cruel, but because she felt it was sore. "There is no Mama," said Artem, just as evenly. "She went away when I was little. Ella Hoffman says Mama was ill, not like me, differently. ill inside. "That happens," said Marina quietly. "It does," agreed Artem, and picked up a block. "Shall we build?" Marina understood. The topic was closed. The child had closed it, carefully, without drama, simply picked up a block. This ability to close the sore without anguish she respected. She couldn't always manage it herself. She didn't ask about the father, not then, not afterward. Ella Hoffman never mentioned him either. There was nothing masculine in the flat. No things, no photographs, none of that particular atmosphere that lingers even after a person has gone. As if the father had never existed at all. As if Artem had come into the world without him. In the second week, the first seizure happened. Marina was prepared. Ella Hoffman had explained everything in detail, showed her where the medication was, explained the sequence. But it is one thing to know, and another to see a child suddenly go still, then begin to shake, his small body doing something he doesn't want and cannot stop. She didn't panic. She laid him on his side, moved everything hard out of the way, checked the time. Ella Hoffman had said that if it lasted more than 3 minutes, call an ambulance. The seizure lasted a minute and a half. When Artem came to, he looked at her and said, "You didn't run." "Where would I run?" said Marina. "The last nanny ran," said Artem, "right in the middle. She ran into the corridor and screamed." "That was foolish," said Marina. "Foolish," agreed Artem. "It made things worse for me than the seizure." Marina moved his hair away from his face, then said, "I won't run. I promise." "Promises must be kept," said Artem seriously. "I know," said Marina. "I keep mine." Then she went to the bathroom, locked the door, and stood there for about 5 minutes, just standing at the sink, holding the edges. She didn't cry, simply stood. Because this small person with dark hair and his right arm held against his body had just told her, "You didn't run," in the tone one uses about something rare and valuable. And that was painful. A good pain, the kind that means something living is still there. By the end of the first month, she knew Artem well. She knew he didn't like being spoken to quickly. He spoke slowly himself and got upset when people didn't wait for him. She knew his favorite thing was to draw large colored squares with his left hand and give each square a name. The red square was called Igor, the yellow one Petya, the blue one, for some reason, Aleftina. She knew he could only fall asleep to a particular song, not a lullaby, but a strange one that had apparently been sung to him by his mother. "Sleep, little one, sleep. I am here. Sleep, little one. I'm not going anywhere." The words were simple to the point of being primitive, but Artem knew them and sometimes sang them himself, softly, as he fell asleep. Once Marina asked Ella Hoffman, carefully because she was a person who didn't like unnecessary questions, "Where does he know that song from?" Ella Hoffman looked at her. "His mother used to sing it," she said briefly. "Is his mother alive?" A pause. "She died 2 years ago." "And before that Artem was with her?" "Until he was 3 with her. Then with me." Ella Hoffman closed the subject the same way Artem did, without drama, simply closed it. "That is all you need to know." Marina nodded. GK asked no more. Around the 5th week, the homeless man appeared. She noticed him by chance. She was taking Artem out for a GK, and out of the corner of her eye, she saw a man at the gate. He was standing, not begging, not looking into windows, simply standing. GK, to tell with such people. A dirty jacket, long unkempt hair, unshaven. He was looking into the courtyard. Marina took Artem out. They sat on a bench. She was reading to him. Artem liked being read aloud to. Then she looked up and saw that the man at the gate was watching Artem, without looking away, with an expression she couldn't immediately name. Not threatening, no, something else. As if he was seeing something that took his breath away. "Artem," she said quietly, "let's go home." "We've only just come out," said Artem.
It's got colder, said Marina. Artem looked at the sky, then at the thermometer Hijikate brought with him, and agreed, reluctantly. At home, she went to the window. The man was still standing at the gate. Then he left. The next day he appeared again. Marina decided she would tell Ella Hoffman. She told her over supper, briefly, without excess. A man at the gate, 2 days running, watching Artem. Ella Hoffman put down her fork. She asked, sharply, without hesitation, "What does he look like?" Marina described him. Ella Hoffman sat in silence for a few GK. Then she stood, went to her GK, closed the door. Marina could hear her speaking on the phone, not loudly, but clearly audibly, and clearly irritated. The words weren't distinguishable. 10 minutes later, Ella Hoffman came out. Her face was the way faces are when a person is angry but doesn't want to show it. "I'll deal with it," she said. "Who is he?" asked Marina. "Nobody," said Ella Hoffman. "Just a man."
I'll deal with it. For the next 2 days, the man wasn't at the gate. Marina thought, he's gone. Ella Hoffman has done something. She relaxed. On the third day, he appeared again. And this time, Artem saw him. They had come out into the courtyard, Marina, as always, holding Artem's hand. The man was standing at the gate from the outside, on the other side of the bars. Artem glanced his way by chance, simply turned his head, and stopped. They looked at each other. The dark-haired boy with his right arm held against his body, and the dirty man behind the gate. 3 seconds, no more. Marina pulled Artem back. "Home," she said firmly. "Who is that?" asked Artem. And in his voice was something, not fear, but something else. Something like recognition. "I don't know. Home." She brought him inside, turned around. The man at the gate was on his knees on the pavement. Both knees, hands on the bars, head bowed. He was kneeling the way people kneel when they no longer have the strength to stand upright, or when something happens for which standing upright would be wrong. Marina looked at him for a few seconds, then closed the front door. Upstairs, she sat Artem at his table with the blocks, made sure he was occupied, and went out to the landing. She took out her phone. Ella Hoffman had given her a work phone, a simple one, with her number on speed dial. She called. "He's here again," she said when Ella Hoffman answered. Artem saw him. The man is on his knees at the gate. Silence. A long one. "I'm coming now," said Ella Hoffman. Her voice was different, not irritated, but flat. The kind of voice you hear when someone is holding back something large. She arrived 40 minutes later. Marina opened the door. Ella Hoffman came in, took off her coat, went through to the sitting room, checked on Artem. He was building something and paid no attention. Then she nodded to Marina. "Come to the kitchen." She closed the door, stood at the window with her back to Marina, said nothing. "Ella Hoffman," said Marina. "Who is that man?" A long pause. "Artem's father," said Ella Hoffman. Marina was silent. "We thought he was dead," she continued, "or gone, one of the two, 3 years ago. Artem was very small then, he doesn't remember him. Artem's mother, my niece, said he had left them. Then she died." A pause. "I thought he was gone for good." "He didn't die," said Marina, "as you can see." "What will you do?" Ella Hoffman turned. Her face was tired. Not the tiredness that comes from work, but the kind that accumulates over years, and from which there is no rest. "It's difficult to explain," she said. "Explain it." Ella Hoffman looked at her, the way you look when deciding how much of the truth to tell. "Artem is registered in my name," she said. "I am his guardian, official, since the death of his mother. The father legally doesn't exist. He was never listed on the birth certificate. His mother decided that. Does he know? I don't know what he knows. I haven't spoken to him in 3 years. And now? Ella Hoffman turned back to the window. I don't know what he wants, she said quietly, and I don't know what is right. A pause. Marina, Artem is the only thing I have. Do you understand? My niece died. Her child is all that's left of her. I have put everything into him for 3 years. Doctors, rehabilitation, education. Her voice became slightly quieter. He is progressing, significantly. 3 years ago they told him he would never walk normally. Now he walks, he speaks, he draws. I've seen, said Marina. And now this man is standing at the gate. Ella Hoffman was silent for a few seconds. I don't know what he wants, and I am frightened. Of what? She didn't answer immediately, then said slowly, that he will want the child, that the court might decide in his favor, biological father after all, that everything I have built over 3 years will collapse. A pause. And I am afraid of something else as well. What? That he is right, said Ella Hoffman very quietly. That Artem should have a father. That I may be wrong to keep this door closed. Marina said nothing. She looked at her. A woman who for 3 years had been everything to the child, grandmother and mother and doctor and teacher, was standing at the window saying, I am frightened. That was not weakness, that was honesty, and honesty costs. What do you want from me? Asked Marina. For now, nothing, said Ella Hoffman. Simply know, and be watchful. The following day, Marina went out alone, without Artem. She told Ella Hoffman she needed the chemist. The chemist was 2 blocks past the gate. There was no one at the gate. She came out onto the street, bought what she needed, was walking back, and saw him. He was sitting on the curb 20 meters from the gate, looking at his hands. Marina stopped. He didn't see her, or wasn't looking. She stood and watched him. Mid-40s. Now, in daylight, it was easier to tell. Once, clearly, he had been a normal man. You could read it in his posture, in the way he sat. A homeless man with posture. His hands large, roughened. His face, not drunk, which was the first thing Marina checked, simply worn down. Simply a man from whom life had taken more than it had given. She approached. He raised his head. They looked at each other in silence for a few seconds. You saw him? Asked Marina. The boy? He was not surprised by the question. He nodded. What's your name? Victor, he said, his voice hoarse, someone who hadn't spoken much in a long time. Victor, repeated Marina. I'm Marina. I'm his nanny. I know, he said. I saw you. You were walking with him. How did you recognize him? She asked. He was so small 3 years ago. Victor looked at her for a long time, then said, He looks like his mother, exactly like her. A pause. And the right hand. I knew about the hand. I was told it can be hereditary, from my side. There was an uncle of mine, the same way. His voice wasn't shaking. It was simply even, the way voices are when a person has already done all their crying. I wasn't certain. I was just walking past and saw him through the window. I stopped. Then I came back. Why? To be sure. And you were sure? Yes. What now? He looked at the gate, at the building behind it. He was quiet for a long time. I don't know, he said at last. I was told he had died, straight after birth. Katya, his mother, rang and said the baby didn't survive. I believed her. He fell silent. I shouldn't have believed her. Why did she say that? We separated badly, said Victor. That's putting it mildly. It was my fault. I drank back then. Not all the time, but I drank. And when I drank, I was a different man. She was frightened. She had the right to be frightened. A pause. But she had no right to tell me he was dead. No, agreed Marina. She didn't. They were quiet. How long have you been living like this? She asked. 3 years. After she rang, I fell apart, completely. Before that, I was holding on, for her sake, for the sake of the child I'd never seen but knew existed. Then, I found out he didn't exist. And that was that. He wasn't saying this with self-pity, just explaining the mechanism. Lost my job, lost my flat. 3 years like this. Are you drinking now? No, he said. 3 months, no. When I found him, I stopped. Right away. Marina looked at him. A man with roughened hands who had lived on the street for 3 years because someone told him his son was dead. Who had stopped drinking the day he saw the boy through the window. Who is sitting on a curb and doesn't know what to do next. Victor, she said, do you have your documents? He looked at her with surprise. A passport, yes, I didn't lose that. Good, said Marina. Wait here. She went home. Ella Hoffman was in the sitting room with Artem. Marina came in, closed the door behind her. I spoke to him, she said. Ella Hoffman looked up. Her face changed. What? I went out and spoke with him. His name is Victor. He says he was told the child died after birth. Ella Hoffman said nothing. Did you know about that? Asked Marina. A pause. Long. Waited. Katya didn't tell me everything, said Ella Hoffman at last. She was a complicated person. He was difficult. He drank. She was frightened for the child. I don't know exactly what she told him. He says that the child had died, said Marina. Ella Hoffman closed her eyes for a moment. Something in her face shifted, barely perceptibly, but it shifted. That was cruel, she said quietly. Yes, that was cruel, she repeated. But she was frightened. I know she was frightened. He has been on the street for 3 years, said Marina. He stopped drinking 3 months ago, the day he saw the boy through the window. The silence in the sitting room was complete. From Artem's room came his voice. He was saying something to his squares, explaining something to Igor and Petya. A calm child's voice. What do you want me to do? Asked Ella Hoffman. Speak to him, said Marina. Just speak to him. He's sitting on the curb, 20 meters from the gate. Ella Hoffman looked at the wall for a long time. Then she stood. All right, she said. She put on her coat and went out. Marina stayed with Artem. She went to his room, sat beside him. Artem was building. Then he raised his head. Has Ella Hoffman gone? Briefly. Where? On an errand. Artem nodded and returned to his construction. Then said, not looking up, as if in passing, That man at the gate, did you talk to him? Marina looked at him. I did. Is he kind? I don't know yet, said Marina honestly. He was looking at me sadly, said Artem, not in a frightening way, sadly. That happens, said Marina.
Why sadly?
Marina thought for a second. Because he missed you, she said. And that was the truth. An incomplete, complicated truth. But the truth. Artem was quiet. He picked up the blue block, the one called Aleftina. People miss me? He asked quietly. Yes, said Marina. Good, said Artem, and placed the block. Ella Hoffman came back half an hour later. Marina was sitting in the kitchen with tea she hadn't drunk. Ella Hoffman came in, took off her coat, hung it, carefully, as always. She went to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, drank it standing up. Well? Asked Marina. He's sober, said Ella Hoffman. That's the first thing. And? And he... She stopped. He doesn't seem like how Katya described him. Either he's changed or she exaggerated. I don't know. What does he want? To see his son, said Ella Hoffman simply. He doesn't say, I want to take him, I want parental rights. He says, to see him, to know he's alive. Marina said nothing. I don't know what to do, said Ella Hoffman. Marina, I don't know. This was unexpected. Such plain helplessness from a person who always knew what to do. If I allow him to see Artem, it may be right. But I am frightened. Frightened that he'll relapse. Frightened that Artem will become attached and then lose again. Artem cannot have new losses. He can't, agreed Marina. But to close the door completely, Ella Hoffman set down the glass. He is the boy's father, a living son, whom he was told was dead. They sat in silence. Ella Hoffman, said Marina, have you ever done something that turned out to be right, even though it was frightening? She looked at her. Yes, she said, when I took Artem. There you are, said Marina. The next morning, Victor was at the gate again. Marina saw him from the kitchen window. He was standing there, not pressing the intercom, simply standing. Ella Hoffman had left for work at 8. Artem was still asleep. Marina watched him for 3 minutes, then put on her jacket and went out. Have you had breakfast? She asked. He looked at her. No. Wait. She went back to the kitchen, made 2 sandwiches and poured tea into a flask, the simple one they used for walks with Artem. She came out and passed them through the gate bars. Victor took them. He looked at the sandwiches for a second, then raised his eyes. Why? He asked. Because you haven't had breakfast, said Marina. I didn't ask. I'm not offering, I'm giving, she said. Those are different things. He ate in silence. She stood on the other side of the gate and looked out at the street. Where do you sleep? She asked. Different places. There's a shelter, sometimes there. Do you have your documents with you? Yes, I already said. I remember. She paused. Do you have anyone? Family? Friends? No. Did you ever have work? I was a plumber, said Victor. Before all this. A good one. There was no pride in the last words, simply a fact. My hands remember. Marina nodded. She was thinking about something. Victor, she said, I'm not promising anything, but I'll try to help. Not with Artem, that's not my decision. With the rest. He looked at her. Why would you do that? He asked. Not with hostility, he simply didn't understand. Marina thought for a second. Because I know what it's like when there's nowhere to go, she said. I came out of prison a week ago. He didn't react to this the way most people react. No alarm, no judgment, no undue curiosity. He simply nodded, took it as a fact. I see, he said. Finish your tea, said Marina. It's getting cold. She went home. Artem was already awake. He was sitting in bed talking to Igor, the red square in the drawing. Marina helped him wash, made breakfast. They ate together. Artem was in a good mood. He was telling her something about a dream in which Aleftina, the blue square, had learned to fly. Squares don't fly, said Artem gravely. But in dreams, you can. In dreams, you can do anything, agreed Marina. Anything? He thought. Even if the right hand doesn't work, in dreams it works? In dreams it works, said Marina. Good, said Artem, and ate the last spoonful of his porridge. Ella Hoffman came back in the evening. Marina met her in the hallway. She wanted to talk before she retreated into her room and the fatigue of the day. I spoke to him this morning, said Marina. I saw, said Ella Hoffman, the gate camera. Marina wasn't surprised. Ella Hoffman, he's been sober for 3 months. He has his documents. He was a plumber. He isn't asking to take the child. He's asking simply to see him. I know what he's asking. Have you been thinking about it? All night. And? Ella Hoffman went to the kitchen, put the kettle on. She stood with her back to Marina. I made inquiries, she said, through my people. Viktor Alexeyevich Gromov, 44 years old. Until 3 years ago, worked as a plumber for a property management company, as he says. Problems with alcohol? Yes, confirmed. But before that, no convictions, no cautions, nothing serious. Simply a man who drank and was destroyed by it. She was quiet. And then he stopped. 3 months, that's not nothing. For a man like that, it's not nothing. No, said Marina. I don't want to take risks with Artem, said Ella Hoffman. She turned. Do you understand? For me, the risk where Artem is concerned is not abstract, it is specific. He will become attached and lose again. Or this man will relapse. He might relapse, agreed Marina. Or he might not. Is that not somewhat optimistic? No, said Marina. It's simply honest. There are no guarantees. But if you close the door, that doesn't guarantee things will be better either. Simply different. Ella Hoffman looked at her. You are a brave person, Marina, she said. Not with admiration, with something more complex. No, said Marina. I've simply seen what happens when someone has all the doors closed on them at once. I know where it leads. Nowhere good. The kettle boiled. Ella Hoffman poured 2 cups. She put one in front of Marina. Here is what I propose, she said, sitting down. I won't make a decision in one evening. Give me a week. During that week, I want you to observe him. You take Artem out every day. Watch. Is he sober? Is he stable? Does he do anything alarming? All right, said Marina. And one more thing. I want to speak to him properly. Not on the street, not through a gate. Like a human being. Can you arrange this so that Artem doesn't see? I can. Then arrange it with him. Tomorrow, while Artem sleeps after lunch, I'll come home from work early. The next day, Marina went out to Viktor in the morning. Tomorrow at 2, she said. Ella Hoffman wants to talk. Properly. Will you come? He looked at her for a few seconds. I'll come, he said. Viktor, she said. One question. Do you understand that this won't be quick? That even if she agrees to something, it will be slow, careful, with conditions? I understand. Are you ready for that? I've been waiting 3 years, he said simply. I know how to wait. The conversation the following day lasted almost 2 hours. Marina sat with Artem in his room. She read to him, then they drew. Then Artem took his afternoon nap as he always did. From the kitchen came voices occasionally. Not words, simply voices. Even. No shouting, no sharpness. When Viktor left, Ella Hoffman went into Artem's room and looked at the sleeping boy. She stood at the door in silence for 2 minutes, then came to the kitchen. Marina followed. Well? Asked Marina. Ella Hoffman was quiet for a long time. He is a good man, she said at last, as if this cost her, not because it wasn't true, but because acknowledging it was hard. Broken, but good. You can feel it. Yes, said Marina. He told me about Katya. About what life was like, about his drinking. Ella Hoffman spoke evenly, but beneath that evenness, something was different. I loved Katya. She was my niece, and I loved her. But she was a hard person. When she decided something, she decided. And she decided he must not know about the child. A pause. I didn't know what she had told him. I thought he simply left. That's what she told me. Left and doesn't appear. I thought he abandoned them. He didn't abandon them, said Marina. No. Ella Hoffman took the cup that had already gone cold, held it in her hands. He says he tried to find Katya after she told him about the child. That he came, that she didn't open the door, that he was already in such a state that... She stopped. In short, he didn't insist, and that too is his fault. But even so, what have you decided? I don't know yet. Ella Hoffman put down the cup. Marina, here is the thing. Legally, I am in a strong position. He is not on the birth certificate. He is a homeless man with a history of alcoholism. Any court would decide in my favor. I can simply close the door, and that's that." "You can," said Marina. "But then I will know that I closed the door on a father who lived on the street for 3 years believing his son was dead." A pause. "And Artem will grow up and one day find this out. Children find out everything, sooner or later. What will he think of me?" "That you were frightened," said Marina. "People understand fear." "That's not enough," said Ella Hoffman. "Not enough for me." Marina was quiet. "Here is what I will do," said Ella Hoffman. "I will give him a condition. He wants to see Artem very well, but first he must get back on his feet. Not in a year and not in 2. Reasonably, gradually. Documents in order, a home, work, even a small job, even a room in shared accommodation, but stability. Because Artem cannot see a man who is here today and tomorrow has relapsed and vanished." She looked at Marina. "That is a hard condition." "That is a fair condition," said Marina. "Will you help him with it?" Marina looked at her. "Why are you asking me?" "Because you are already helping," said Ella Hoffman. "You brought him sandwiches and tea. You spoke with him in the street. You arranged this conversation." She looked at Marina directly. "You are a person who knows how to help people who have nowhere to go. I see that." Marina was quiet for a second. "I'll try," she said. "Good," said Ella Hoffman. "Then there is one more thing. I am not asking you to do this for free. I will increase your salary. For Artem and for this. You deserve it." "There's no need for the second part," said Marina. "There is," said Ella Hoffman firmly. "I don't accept help for free. That is my principle." The next day, Marina went out to Victor again. She passed on the condition, word for word, without additions of her own. He listened in silence, didn't interrupt. "Is that fair?" she asked when she had finished. "Yes," he said. "Do you agree?" "Yes." A pause. "But I don't know where to start." "I know," said Marina. "That's why I'm here." First, documents. He had a passport, but worn, expiring. They went to the Government Services Center. Marina asked Ella Hoffman for half a day off. She gave it without questions. At the center, Victor stood in the queue stiffly. A person who hasn't been in a government office for 3 years feels out of place there. Marina stood beside him. She said little, simply was there. Sometimes that is enough. The passport was handed in for renewal. While they waited, Marina asked about an address. "No address," said Victor. "I lost the flat 3 years ago. The rent ran out. I wasn't paying. They threw me out. That's where I was registered." "You need an address for work," said Marina. "At least a temporary one. Can the shelter give a temporary registration?" "I don't know. We'll find out." The shelter, officially named Social Refuge for Persons of No Fixed Abode, gave a temporary registration. That took 3 days and several conversations with a social worker, a young woman named Olga, who had worked there for 2 years and in those 2 years had learned to be surprised by nothing. She helped with the paperwork, quickly, professionally, without unnecessary questions. "Are you his relative?" Olga asked Marina. "No," said Marina. "I'm just helping." Olga looked at her, at Victor, back at her. "All right," she said. Work was found within a week. Marina rang several property management companies. At first, they turned her down the moment they heard no permanent address. Then one agreed, a small one, in the next district. They needed a plumber and needed one urgently. The manager, a man of about 50 named Gennady, spoke to Victor on the phone for 5 minutes, asked about his experience, asked if he could start tomorrow. Victor said he could. "Do you drink?" Gennady asked directly. 3.5 months clean, said Victor. "If you show up drunk, I'll sack you on the spot. No discussion." "Understood." Then 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Victor went to work. Marina found out that evening. He called her on the phone she had given him. He simply said, "Started, all fine." She said, "Good." The conversation lasted 20 seconds. Artyom that evening was drawing a new square, orange. He thought for a long time about the name. "Victor," he said at last. Marina, who was sitting beside him, looked up. "Why Victor?" she asked. "It's a beautiful name," said Artyom. "Strong, like victory. It's the same thing, isn't it?" "Yes," said Marina. "Victor means victory." "There you are," said Artyom with satisfaction. "Orange is a warm color. Warm and victory. Good." Marina looked at the orange square with the name Victor on the wall. She thought about how children sometimes know things that adults don't, or don't know, but sense. A month passed. Victor worked. Not one absence, not one complaint. Gennady rang Marina himself. She had left him the number in case of problems. He didn't ring with a problem. He simply said, "Your acquaintance works well. Golden hands." Marina thanked him and passed it on to Victor. He listened in silence, then said, "I know I can work. I just haven't been doing it for a long time." Ella Hoffman followed this, in silence through Marina. She didn't ring Victor, didn't inquire directly, but every time Marina reported, briefly, to the point, she listened carefully. In the 6th week, Ella Hoffman said, "He needs proper housing. He needs to get out of the shelter. That is not an environment for a man trying to get back on his feet." "A room in shared accommodation," said Marina. "I've been looking at listings. There are options in his area, not expensive." "Does he have the money?" "After 6 weeks' work, he should. I haven't asked." "Ask." There was money, not much, but enough for the first month. A room was found in 3 days. Small, in a 3-room shared flat with a communal kitchen and bathroom. Victor looked around it in silence, without emotion, then said, "Fine." Marina, who had come with him, understood from his face that fine was far more than just a word. It was his first room of his own in 3 years. Ella Hoffman said, "Let's see in 2 months. If everything is stable, we can talk about the first meeting with Artem. Not alone, with her present, with Marina present. Brief, neutral, with no explanation of who he is. Simply to meet." Over those 2 months, Marina watched Victor work at himself. Not in the sense of doing anything heroic, simply doing ordinary things that come easily to ordinary people but cost him effort. Arriving at work on time. Not drinking, not once. Paying for the room. Sometimes he rang Marina, briefly, to the point. Once he said, "I understand this may lead nowhere, that she may say no in the end." "She may," said Marina. "I'll carry on anyway," he said. "I know," said Marina. "I just wanted to say, not because I'm waiting for a reward, simply because it needs to be done." "I understand," said Marina. A pause. "Marina," he said, "why are you doing this? Not for me. Why is it for you?" She thought about it honestly. "Because nobody helped me when I came out," she said. "Nobody was waiting. Nobody explained anything. Nobody said where to go. I sat in a shelter for 3 days, thinking that's how it would always be." A pause. "I don't want it to be like that for others." "You helped, even though nobody helped you?" "Yes." "That's..." He didn't find a word. "Nothing special," said Marina. During those 2 months, Artem grew, not in the sense of height, but in some inner sense. He began to speak faster, imperceptibly, gradually. Marina noticed. Words came more freely, got stuck less often. His rehabilitation therapist, who came twice a week, told Ella Hoffman that the progress was good, better than expected. Ella Hoffman told Marina. Marina said nothing, but that evening, after Artem was asleep, she sat in the kitchen for a long time with her cold tea, thinking that this small person who had said, "You didn't run," deserved everything good that there is. One night, this was in the 3rd month of Marina's work in the flat, she woke to a quiet sound. She got up, went to the corridor. The light was on in Artem's room. She went to the door, carefully opened it. Artem was sitting in bed, singing. Quietly, almost to himself. Sleep, little one, sleep. I am here. Sleep, little one. I am not going anywhere. But he wasn't singing this to himself. He was singing it to the orange square on the wall. To Victor. Marina stood in the doorway and watched, then quietly closed the door and went back to her room. She lay down. Couldn't sleep for a long time. She thought about how children sometimes feel something before adults have managed to decide whether they are allowed to feel it. The meeting was arranged for a Saturday. Ella Hoffman said, "In the park near the building, in the morning. Neutral ground, open space. Artem loves this park. No explanations to the boy beforehand. They would simply go for a walk, and there would be someone there." Victor arrived at the park before time. Marina saw him from a distance. He was standing by a bench in a clean jacket, shaved, with neatly cut hair. She didn't recognize him at first. He had changed over those 2.5 months. Not into a different person, but different on the outside. He stood straight, hands in his pockets. Ella Hoffman walked alongside Artem, holding his hand, saying something. Artem listened, nodded. Then he raised his head and saw Victor. He stopped. Victor stopped too. They looked at each other. The 6-year-old boy and the 44-year-old man, who had seen each other once, briefly, through a gate several months ago. But both stood as if this were not the first time. "This is Victor," said Ella Hoffman evenly. "He is a friend of ours." Artem looked at him for a few seconds, then said, "Victor means victory." Victor gave a slight start. He looked at Marina. She was standing a little to one side. Marina gave a brief nod. "Yes," said Victor. His voice was steady, but it cost him. Marina could hear. "Victory." "I have a square with your name," said Artem. "Orange." "I know," said Victor. "Marina told me." Artem looked at Marina with mild reproach. "You told him?" "A little," said Marina. "You didn't have to," said Artem. "It was going to be a surprise." "I'm sorry," said Marina seriously. Artem thought for a second, then looked at Victor. "Can you build towers?" Victor looked at the boy, at his dark hair, at his thin hands, at the right one held slightly against his body, at his serious eyes. "I've never tried," he said. "Marina hadn't tried either," said Artem. "She learned." A pause. "I'll show you." They sat on a bench, Artem between Marina and Victor, Ella Hoffman a little apart. Artem took 2 small blocks from his pocket. He always took them on walks, and began to explain the rules of construction. Seriously, methodically, the way someone explains something they consider important. Victor listened. He looked at his son. He kept his hands on his knees, very still, too still, the way you hold your hands when there is something large inside you that cannot be shown. Ella Hoffman looked at the two of them, then shifted her gaze to Marina. Marina caught that look. There was a great deal in it, fatigue, a fear that hadn't gone, but had become something different and something else, something similar to what she had said that evening in the kitchen. "When I took Artem, I was frightened, but it turned out to be right." Marina nodded to her, in silence. Ella Hoffman turned to look at the path. The meeting lasted 40 minutes. Artem told Victor about all his squares, explained why Aleftina was blue and not purple, and asked whether Victor had a favorite color. Victor said, "Green." Artem said, "I don't have a green one, I'll make one." And that sounded like a promise. When they were saying goodbye, Victor stood, said farewell to Ella Hoffman, briefly, with dignity. She nodded. Then he crouched down in front of Artem to be at eye level. "Goodbye, Artem." "Goodbye, Victor," said Artem. then added, "Come again." Victor didn't answer immediately. He stood up. He looked at Ella Hoffman. She was quiet for a second. "Come," she said. It was one word, but there was a great deal in it. Victor nodded. He walked toward the park exit. Marina watched him go, walking straight, upright, in his clean jacket, shaved, with his head up. Artem took her hand. "Will he come?" he asked. "He'll come," said Marina. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." "How do you know?" Marina looked at him. "Because he's been doing difficult things for 3 months already," she said. "People like that don't go away." Artem thought, then nodded, briskly, as if ticking a box. "Good," he said. They went home, Artem between Marina and Ella Hoffman, holding both their hands. He was talking about the green square, what exact shade it should be, light or dark. Dark green, he decided, like the forest. The forest is reliable. Reliable, agreed Marina. Like you, said Artem, not looking at her, simply in passing. Marina didn't reply. She simply held his hand a little tighter. After that, everything moved slowly and rightly. Victor came once a week. He and Artem built towers, first in the park, then, when Ella Hoffman allowed it, at home. Victor learned. Artem was a strict teacher, but a fair one. Once he said, "You're doing better than last time." Victor answered, "I'm trying." Artem nodded gravely. That's the main thing. Ella Hoffman watched. Sometimes she stayed in the room, sometimes she left. Gradually, she left more often. That was her decision, and she made it in her own way, quietly, without announcement. One evening, when Artem was already asleep and Victor had left, Ella Hoffman was sitting in the kitchen, and Marina came in to pour some water. "He loves him," said Ella Hoffman. Not as a question. "Yes," said Marina. "I can see that." A pause. "And Artem loves him. I can see that too." "Yes." "That's fast," said Ella Hoffman. "Artem attaches quickly to people who are honest with him," said Marina. "How do you know?" "He attached to me the same way," said Marina simply. Ella Hoffman looked at her. Then, something unusual, she smiled. Not broadly, not warmly, simply smiled. "You are a strange person, Marina," she said. "I know," said Marina. "That's a good thing," said Ella Hoffman. 3 months after the first meeting in the park, Ella Hoffman came to Marina in the evening, herself, for no stated reason. That was unusual. She stood in the doorway of Marina's room. "I've been thinking about one question," she said. "Which one?" "Documents. Victor legally doesn't exist for Artem." She spoke evenly, the way one speaks about practical matters, but beneath that there was something else. "I was thinking, perhaps that's even simpler, fewer complications." "And now?" "And now I'm thinking differently," said Ella Hoffman. "Artem will grow up. He's a clever boy. He will grow up very clever. He will ask about his father. He has already been asking, you know." "I know." "If it then turns out that the father existed and we had hidden it, Artem won't forgive it. Not me, and perhaps not Victor either. It will break something important." "Yes," said Marina, "which is why I think it needs to be done properly, legally, slowly perhaps, complicated perhaps, but properly." "Have you spoken to a solicitor?" "Tomorrow." Ella Hoffman paused. "Marina, I want to say something to you." "Go on." "When I took you on, I thought I was taking someone with nowhere to go, who would stay because there was no choice." She spoke slowly. "I was right about the first part, but wrong about the second." "Why wrong?" Because you didn't stay because you had nowhere to go, said Ella Hoffman. You stayed because you wanted to. Those are different things. Marina said nothing. I want to say thank you, said Ella Hoffman. That took effort, you could see it. For Artem, for Victor, for not being frightened of either of them. There's nothing to thank me for, said Marina. There is, said Ella Hoffman firmly. I know how to recognize when someone has done more than they were asked to. You did more. She left. Marina sat in her small room with its bed, table, and wardrobe. Outside the window was the courtyard. The flat was quiet. Artem was asleep. Ella Hoffman had gone to her room. The quiet was an ordinary domestic quiet, the kind Marina had not had for 3 years. She thought about how it had all started, with a flyer on a notice board with accommodation provided, with one phone call. How much had fitted into 3 months and a little more. Ella Hoffman, who is a thorough person and who rang the prison. Artem with his squares and his names. Victor, who had lived on the street for 3 years believing his son was dead and who had stopped drinking the day he saw him through the window. She wasn't thinking about the construction firm director who had made her the fall person. She wasn't thinking about 3 years in prison. Not because she had forgotten, but because these 3 months had given her something that outweighed it. Not compensated for it. That was impossible to compensate for. Simply outweighed. Once, it was already December, and Artem had drawn his first dark green square and hung it beside the orange one, Victor came on Saturday, as always. He and Artem were building a tower. The tower fell. Artem was upset, genuinely, his lips pressed together, his eyes becoming wet. Victor looked at him. Artem, he said, towers always fall. That's normal. Why is that normal? Said Artem crossly. Because they're built again, said Victor. Every time again. That's all. Artem looked at the fallen blocks. Then he began to gather them, in silence, carefully, block by block. Victor helped. They built in silence, side by side. Marina sat against the wall and watched them, father and son, who didn't yet know officially that they were father and son, but who already knew something else, something more important than official. The tower grew higher than the previous one. Higher than it was, said Artem, surprised as if he hadn't expected it. It's always like that, said Victor. Artem looked at him. Always? When you build again, it's always higher. Artem thought, then nodded, that brisk nod of his that meant, noted, agreed. Marina looked at the tower of multicolored blocks, higher than it had been. She thought that this was a fine metaphor, but she didn't say so aloud, because there was no need. Some things are good precisely because they don't need to be explained. Outside the window, snow was falling, the 1st of this December. Artem noticed, ran to the window, pressed his nose to the glass. Victor stood beside him. Then, carefully, he placed his hand on his son's shoulder. Artem didn't pull away. He simply stood and looked at the snow. Beautiful, said Artem. Beautiful, agreed Victor. Marina wasn't looking at them. She was looking the other way, at the wall where the squares hung. Red Igor, yellow Petya, blue Aleftina, orange Victor, dark green without a name yet. Artem was still thinking. Then she heard Artem's voice. Marina, come and look. Snow! She stood up. She came over. She stood beside them at the window. The snow was falling evenly, quietly, covering the courtyard in white. Under the lamp the flakes spiraled, slowly, without hurry. The green square, said Artem suddenly. I've thought of a name. What name? Asked Marina. Snow, said Artem. Because snow is when everything is clean. A pause. And everything can begin again. Nobody said anything. They simply stood at the window. The boy, his father, and the woman who had walked out of prison on a Friday morning with a bag containing all her worldly possessions, and who by Monday was already rocking someone else's child and singing him a lullaby. The snow fell. Everything can begin again.